It's not too hard.
Everything I do is
Yeah.
for the
Yeah.
grandkids,
How
but it
many-
has a full garden.
Yeah, it's easy to forget.
Goodness, how many do you have?
Just
We would always like
2, 4, 5.
So they're coming,
They're
you're
coming.
right at
Yeah,
the point where
they're
they're coming.
starting to come.
So,
So anyway, yes.
what are their ages? And that is just beautiful.
Yeah, and what's cool is the tree itself has so much character to it. It's on a lazy Susan, so as it turns around, you get back to the back. The whole backside is gonna be a dinosaur layer.
Yeah, and I wondered about your numbering. I think we're missing number, on that, it's okay, but when go ahead and tell me. But when you go through the items, you know? Yeah, yeah, but anyway, go ahead. I was gonna mention, yeah.
Would you just announce a day when you're for that's going to be posted?
Yeah, June 8th, yeah. Okay,
How are
okay. Well, we've got Rob Callis, yeah, he's at a wedding, isn't he? It's his first granddaughter's wedding out in Arizona, yeah, so. Yeah, we do. I better get a cookie, get my,
Here they're all taken up. I mean, they're back. She's back east, which is amazing. Yeah, they did, so. I know.
but they sure are fun, thank you for doing it.
But ever since I started watching what I eat a little bit of it, and then my wife gets the rest. So she loves it. She loves it. She loves it when I when I come to meetings.
Yeah, thank you for doing it. Thank you, Kathy.
So yeah, I have 5 little ones. You know, so the oldest is 2 something.
Oh, my goodness. So they're all little.
They're all little. They're
Oh,
all
that's
little.
fun.
My
Okay.
youngest,
Well,
is
I
actually
can't really start, can I?
the youngest is living in our basement now because they're building a home down at Anderson Farm. So
Oh, they
they
are?
sold their home.
So Mike, you said your son's going on a mission. Did he get a mission call already?
He is the cutest little kid.
Really? Is it looking likely now that these kids are gonna get out of the country and,
Oh, isn't it? That's fun.
And he just, nothing but smiles. You walk in the room and he just sees you and beams and gets so
That's really
excited.
fun.
You know, so it's really fun to have him around. In fact, my wife was watching him full time.
Oh, is she?
She was
well, he doesn't even go to
daycare while but then finally she's uncle, you know, so now that he goes to daycare and we miss him every morning not seeing him.
that's awesome.
Even though he's right downstairs in the basement.
Yeah, grandkids are the best. We were attending ours for 3 days.
Brazil Campinas in Sao Paulo.
This last week up in Ogden. They're
So that's
fun.
that's us and all the little ones.
Oh, yeah.
They are all
Nice.
just little, aren't
They're
they?
all little.
That's a really cute picture though. That's a really cute picture. Okay, we still don't have, oh, there's Renee.
Nice.
There's Renee. Oh, we've got Mike too.
Well, where's
so-
he at? Mexico City?
Okay, the
Oh,
prayer.
did he?
Who's that? Oh, wow. You're getting it easy. Is this your first one? This is
Oh,
so
where's-
nice.
where is he?
You're gonna be being able to video chat with him now is just a life changer.
Well,
It's a life changer. It'll be a life changer. I mean,
well, we better start because we've got enough people now. Oh, that's neat though, Mike.
Honduras.
20-year-old. I'm having an 18-year-old that's graduating right now. I have one that'll be 17 next month. PG.
Okay, we'd like to welcome you to our Planning Commission meeting this evening. Gosh, this has been how many months now? doing it without the mask tonight. We're distanced up here and a long ways from you, and my goodness, it feels good though. So welcome to all of you. This is Planning Commission meeting for May 25th, 2021. This meeting is being recorded. We're going to begin our meeting with an opening prayer by Commissioner Tribe and then a pledge of allegiance by Commissioner Thompson.
Heavenly Father, we're grateful for a gathering this evening of commissioners, citizens, and staff of Lindon City. And we ask that we will be blessed with discernment, effective conversation, and the decision-making skills needed. We're grateful for our city, we're grateful for our county and our state and our country, and ask that a blessing be upon those leaders that lead and guide our nation and our cities and our counties and our state. And we're grateful to be a part of the freedoms that we hold dear. And this we say in Jesus Christ, amen.
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 Would everybody please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated.
Okay, we'll begin with the roll call of the commissioners. Sharon Call, here. Mike Marchbanks.
Here.
Jared Showers.
Here.
Rob Callis. He's excused tonight. Stephen Johnson.
Here.
Scott Thompson.
Here.
And Renee Tribe.
Here.
Okay. And we've received the minutes ahead of time for May 11th, 2021. Had a chance to review those. Are there any changes or corrections to the minutes by any of the commissioners? I thought they looked great, as usual. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Do I have a second? Favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the voting is unanimous. Okay, the next item on our agenda is, this is a time for public comment. This would be for any items that are not already on the agenda for this evening. Is there anyone here for that purpose? Okay. The next item on our agenda, item number 4, this is the Lindon Treasury Plat E Major Subdivision Approval. This is at approximately 110 South, 250 West. Our applicant is Matt. Oh, excuse me. I'm sorry. I was reminded of that and I forgot. The first item on the agenda, and that would have been, oh, you've got it up there already. This is the public hearing, and I can't quite read it up there, but it's the public hearing for a recommendation to the City Council to amend the Lindon City zoning map.
Sharon, it's the major subdivision. No, it's number 4. We're just announcing that one's been postponed.
And that is postponed for this evening.
Was
It will
anybody
be.
here for that item?
Okay, it will be on the agenda again for June 8th, and that will be the next time the Planning Commission meets. Okay. And then the next item, and I guess that is still item number 5. This is the Lindon Treasury Plat E Major Subdivision Approval, and this is at approximately 110 South, 250 West. Our applicant is Matt Labudi, is that how you say it?
Good job.
Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
We're
And
like
if you,
one of the only people that has ever gotten that correct.
well, that's amazing. If you'd like to come up to the front. that would be great.
Like, I just sit right here.
Uh-huh. And there should be a place for you to sign in there. Okay, and Matt is our applicant. Our presenting staff is Michael Florence. And I'm gonna let you go ahead, Mike.
Okay, thank you, commissioners. So Mr. Labudi has filed an application for major subdivision approval. This is, you've seen a couple of these subdivisions within the last year. I'm amending the Lindon Treasury plats, so this would be for Lindon Treasury Plat E. It's a 9-lot subdivision. The approximate acreage is, sorry, I didn't have that right offhand, 6.29 acres. And it's 9 lots, so it takes in 2 existing lots on 300 West. Be this existing home here, and then the one just to the south of it. So it's bringing these 2 lots into the subdivision, these existing homes into the subdivision, and then 7 new lots on this vacant property. Let me talk about the. I'll come back to these photos real quick. Here's the plat that's before you. The lot sizes range in size from just over 20,000 square feet to 56,000 square feet, so they meet the minimum lot size. We found they meet the minimum frontage requirements. The roads, at least 110 South meets the minimum width requirement. The one thing with 300 West, that road currently doesn't meet the width requirements and doesn't meet the Culdesac requirements as well. But you can see the difference between the standard Culdesac and the one on 300 West. So what the city has worked with the property owners and developer with is to try and bring it into compliance as close as possible and to make it safe. So they'll be adding, they'll keep the cul-de-sac, but they'll also add this little leg here on the hammerhead turnaround, which does meet code. So the fire truck does have sufficient room to back up and go back down 300 West because the cul-de-sac doesn't meet the minimum standards. Regarding 110 North, so Lindon City in our code, we do allow for a cul-de-sac that, what's the right word for that? A negative grade cul-de-sac, and that because of the topography of the property, we allow by city code a 6% negative grade on that cul-de-sac. So you can see from this picture, it's just stubbed to the end of the road right here. They'll actually, from this corner, they'll be, because it drains right now to the east, and then it'll need to drain to the west. So that 300 West, there'll be a pipeline, storm drain line put in, connecting to the storm drain line in 110 South and going out to 300 West. So they'll redo the asphalt and curb gutter and sidewalk that was previously installed. And you can see the topography of the land here. So you'll have a cul-de-sac down here at the bottom. This is what it looks like from the property below. And then here's kind of what that street will look like. Here, this is 110 West or 110 South here at the top. It then descends down to the bottom of the cul-de-sac. That's 6%. Now, typically we don't like downhill cul-de-sacs because of stormwater issues. But you can see they've been working with our engineering department. They've sized that storm drain line appropriately, and then to ensure that we have a bigger storm event, there'll also be on top. There'll be a grass. What do we call that? It's a kind of a little ditch.
Retention?
Well, not retention. No, it won't be a berm. It'll be a small little swell. Yes, thank you. It'll be a swell that will go down to 300 West to to be able to catch the addition, in case there is any additional stormwater. So that was one of the concerns from engineering department on having a downhill cul-de-sac.
Is the sewer going west or east?
I don't remember on that. I apologize. Do you remember?
It would be going west, yeah.
So you got an easement to get out to the,
Yeah, luckily we live in that little house on lot 13. And
Oh, okay.
Our neighbors have control of lot 14. So the drain lines will go down in between our two houses and then meet that existing drain in the cul-de-sac. And then, of course, the storm drain will come out into the cul-de-sac.
you know what size sewer main that is down there that you'll be tying into?
I forget the size, but they did look at it and said that it's large enough.
Adequate to pick up those lots?
Yeah,
I can pull that up and we can get you the right size.
if I remember, correctly. I mean, that was one of the first things we looked at to make sure that it was feasible. Good question.
Oh, there's that drainage swell.
Mhm. Just saying a 15-inch, is the 15-inch concrete pipe the storm sewer or public sewer?
Sorry, say that again, Commissioner.
Which, it looks like it's showing a 15-inch
Inch.
concrete pipe.
I think that's.
Is that sewer main or storm sewer?
I think that's still storm.
Okay.
I'm not seeing it. Looks like there's an 8-inch currently.
It's been several months, but
Yeah, it'll be that 8-inch
I believe
PVC.
they said it was the
Uh-huh.
8-inch.
So with that, the city's been through this. We haven't found any deficiencies in the site plan or in the subdivision plat. As staff, we've recommended approval with, let me get to the right sheet. So city staff has recommended approval with the following conditions: that the applicant will continue to work with city staff to make all final corrections to the engineering documents and plat. The plat with lot layouts is approved as provided in the staff report. Prior to plat recording, the applicant will provide staff with a final plat Mylar to include notarized signatures of the owner's consent to dedication and obtain signatures of all entities indicated on the attached subdivision plat. Complete or post an adequate improvement completion assurance warrant and post required warranty assurance for all required public infrastructure improvements. The plans and plat will meet and be constructed as per applicable specifications as found in the Lindon City Development Manual. Prior to final development approval, the applicant will place permanent survey monuments in the subdivision and all items of the staff report. So, commissioners, do you have any questions for me or the applicant? I'll pull this subdivision plat up.
I don't have questions. Other commissioners may. Are there people here from residents that are here concerning this item on the agenda? Okay, we don't, it's not a public hearing, but we do allow comment. So if you'd like to give your name and go ahead, sir.
Craig Carter. And I appreciate all the work that Matt has put into this project. He's done a ton of work, and I appreciate the city working with him. And as my point of view, I agree with everything how he's laid it out, presented it. He has taken very been very thoughtful for our concerns, because we're right there. Our property abuts 3 of the new lots that will be put in. And I hope the city approves this and that he can move forward with it.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else from any other residents? Okay, commissioners, do you have any discussion or questions?
Looks good.
No, it looks straightforward.
It seems to comply with everything that it needs to comply with, and
Right.
and we're excited to see more half-acre lots or greater in the city. That's
Yeah.
exciting. So
Those will be beautiful big lots down
Yeah.
there.
We're excited.
Yeah, and you live right down there then, huh?
Yeah, we're in that little farmhouse on lot 13. I think that was built in the 40s or the 50s, and it's small living space for 5 kids. And someday we'd like to build on lot 12.
That's what I wondered,
That's
if
our
you're
dream.
gonna build you a new home.
Yeah, that's our dream.
Yeah,
see.
if this all goes well.
Yeah.
Craig
Okay.
and Carter, is that's the old green home, ain't it? That Ray Green
Yes.
built? Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Commissioner Marchbanks knows all the history of everything.
I'd love to ask you some questions someday,
Yeah.
if you know about that property.
And here as old and long as me, you gotta.
It's a great property. There's old stables, and I mean, it's just a wonderful place. So.
Okay. If there's no other discussion, are we ready for a motion, or does staff have anything else, or?
I'm ready to make a motion.
Okay,
I move to recommend approval of the applicant's request for preliminary approval of Lindon Treasury Plat E with the 7 noted items.
okay, I have a motion, do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, motion and a second, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the voting is unanimous. And thank you for coming in. It'll be nice to watch that, see how that develops.
And Commissioner Call, just for the audience and stuff, this will go to city council at one of their next upcoming meetings. So for-
Right,
for
because it
final
is
approval.
a major subdivision.
Yep.
So you're right, I guess I was assuming as few questions as there were that
Yep.
it would probably go in, but it does have to go to city council.
Well, we'll look
So-
forward to that. Thank you very much for your consideration.
you.
Thank you so much. Okay, the next item on our agenda is a public hearing, and so, and this is item number 6, and I do need a motion to open a public hearing.
I move to open a public hearing.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, motion and a second, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the voting is unanimous. Okay, and this item is a public hearing for a zoning map amendment at 860 West, 200 South. And our applicant is Lindon Self-Storage. Is that you? Okay, and if you'd like to come up to the front, whoever would like to represent you. And then our presenting staff is Anders Bake. You go ahead, Anders.
Thank you, Commissioners. So again, this is a zone map amendment request for the property at about 860 West, 200 South. And the request is to change the zoning map designation of a portion of this property from residential R120 to light industrial. So as you can see, let's see, I'll go to this map. So the property that the Lindon Self-Storage owns is basically this, if you can see my mouse, the property that's in the white box, as well as the property to the south. And their project would be both of those parcels, as well as a few additional parcels. And so about half the property is currently zoned light industrial, and they're requesting that the other half, the northern half of that property, also be light industrial. So some history on this project. In 2016, the applicant received approval for a storage unit development on the south property, and they didn't go forward with the project at that time, and so that approval was expired. And so they'll also be requesting site plan and subdivision approvals to do that storage unit project on this south property, but they would also like to now include this north property in the white box as part of that project. So originally they were approved for a 46 unit storage units, and now they are requesting to do 75 storage units. Yeah, so the general plan, it has both the property that they own to the south, and then also the property where they're requesting the zone change as a mixed commercial. And that mixed commercial in the general plan says that that zoning designation, or that general plan designation, supports low intensity light industrial. And so majority of that property is in that mixed commercial. A small portion of it is in what's designated as low density residential in the general plan. And then surrounding properties are mostly mixed commercial, light industrial, and commercial. And so the light industrial zone, it requires that a lot have a minimum of 1 acre, which is being met by this parcel. And so that the lot meets those requirements. Going back to the zoning again, the properties surrounding it are partially 20,000 square foot lot, minimum lot size residential units along 800 West, and then properties to the west and south are industrial properties. Back in, September of 2018, the BMC property, which is to the west, this property, if you can see my mouse there, that was received a zoning map amendment approval.
It was just the section to the right of that.
Is that right here? Okay, so yeah, that portion of it received approval to go from residential to light industrial. So this request, the Planning Commission will be making a recommendation to the City Council, which approves zone map amendment requests. And so the motion for this item is to approve, deny, or continue ordinance 2021-7-0 to amend the Lindon City zoning map from residential R120 to light industrial LI at approximately 860 West, 200 South, with parcel number 14-065-0219. So does the Planning Commission have any questions for me or the applicant?
Is the access coming from 800 West or?
Yeah, so that's a good point, and that's something we'll get into a little bit more with the other applications. But yeah, the access, so this property is, it doesn't have public street access. And so they've worked out an access agreement with the property that's to the south here. that property is, let's see. It's at 850 west, 200 south, so again, this,
Sorry, bicycles.
That's what I wondered if
Yeah.
that, I went down there and tried to look at it today, and it's right there by the Fazari.
yeah, so that's where they have an access agreement with that property, and so that's where they'll have their public access to the property is from that property with a 60-foot wide access.
So that'll be the main access?
That will be the main access, the only,
Off
the only,
of 200,
yeah, that will be the only customer access
okay.
for the property off of 200.
And would vehicles be coming down the east side of Fazari Building or the west side?
West side.
Yeah,
I
the
know they
west
can-
side.
Okay. That seemed logical to
They
me,
will
but.
have an emergency access. Can you show where that little flag
Yeah,
is?
so they'll have an emergency access that will be right here.
So that's all that'll be used for is an emergency?
Gated.
Okay.
So
Mhm.
it's 20 feet wide and will be gated with a Knox lock so that only the fire department can use it.
Well, I know we'll get into this more later, but
And Commissioner, we'd be glad to go through those other items if you think, in more detail, if you think that would help with
I
this.
think it would help, just because I think it makes a difference on how the zone change is perceived.
So, yeah, we'll go through it, kind of give the whole presentation.
Okay, I think that would be helpful.
Okay, yeah. I'll just show their site plan here. So yeah, if you'd like, I can, yeah, just kind of go through the site plan requirements and subdivision. Okay, so yeah, I'll go ahead and do that, and then we'll get back to that motion. So there's several other applications that they're doing for this project. There's a site plan application, so the overall development requirements for their building. There's a minor subdivision plat, and then there's actually two major subdivision plats. So I guess to start, I'll go with the minor subdivision. So that, let's see. Okay. So the minor subdivision request is so let me go to a map here. Okay. So if you can see this property here, the property that is, sorry, yeah, so it's 122 south, 800 west. This property was, a portion of that property was divided off and sold to the Lindon self-storage applicant for their project.
Lindon Self-Storage they bought that property with the back, and then they divided off the front lot and sold
So
it
they
off.
bought the entire property.
Yes.
But it didn't go through the right channels to do that.
Right, they divided it by deed, they should have done that by plat. So that's one of the things they're correcting with this one.
Exactly, yeah, so this lot is a minor subdivision application with two lots. Lot 1 would be the residential lot, and then lot 2 will be the remaining portion that's owned by the Lindon self-storage that consolidates other existing parcels into one lot. So lot 1, there's an existing single-family home on the lot that will remain as a residential lot. And that meets the lot requirements for a residential property with lot size of having over 20,000 square feet, lot width, depth, and public street frontage. And then lot 2, that is an industrial lot, assuming that it's all has the light industrial zoning, and that is about 3.8 acres. So it meets the lot size requirement of 1 acre. The lot as we've talked about a little bit, does not have public street frontage. One of the requirements for a light industrial lot is that it has 100 feet of public street frontage, and it has 0 feet of public street frontage. But it does have a 60-foot wide access off of 200 South through that property at 850 West, 200 South. And in 2016, the Planning Commission did approve of that access. So nothing has changed with as far as that access goes from the 2016 plan that was approved to this plan. The only difference is the additional acreage to the north. And so I'll go over the motion for. Okay. Okay. All right. Sorry, kind of. Okay. So the major subdivision application, so there's 2 plats. They're Lindon Self-Storage Subdivision Plat B and Lindon Self-Storage Subdivision Plat C. And I'll show those. So this first one, it's our understanding, the reasoning for having 2 separate plats is so that the applicant can phase the project into 2 different phases. But overall, there will be 75 units, and each unit will be condominiumized. So each unit will be a separate parcel that will be under separate ownership, potentially. So this first unit is for the buildings, including the office building, and then they've also provided the elevation views of each of those units, and then the second plat is 3 additional buildings to the north. And so, yeah, again, overall, it's 75 units. And then, so they are meeting the requirements for a major subdivision with 3-dimensional drawings of each unit and the property surface description. They've also provided conditions, covenants, and restrictions and bylaws for the condominium subdivision and letters of evaluation from their architect and attorney to show that they're meeting the condominium requirements.
That plat there did show the 20-foot wide access easement to 800 West, or, yeah. I think you want to show those photos.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's that access easement there. Okay, and then, so this is the access, so I guess this is the property that the public would access off of 200 South, and then this is a little bit further down that road, kind of where their property line starts, how it currently looks. And then this would be the emergency access off of 800 West. And again, that would only be for emergency vehicles. It would be gated, and it would be paved to meet. We've worked closely with the Orem Fire Department and to have approval of those accesses, and it would be paved to meet their requirements.
Probably have to put up some signs or something as a reminder to Mr. Nielsen, because that horse trailer would, where it's currently parked, would block that 20-foot wide access.
Who owns that access? Does the self-storage owns it, or?
I can't remember, is Robert Nielsen? Robert Nielsen owns that property, so they're purchasing an easement from him.
Yeah, and they're proposing 2 fire lane, no parking signs on that access easement, along that easement area. So now I'll go a little bit more into the site plan requirements. So first of all, with parking, the parking code basically just goes off of the office building on the property. It requires 1 stall per 200 square feet of floor area, which is just 4 parking stalls, which are provided in front of that office area, as well as bike parking. So that's in compliance. And then for traffic circulation, so as we've discussed, the only public access would be off of 200 South. They've provided radiuses showing how traffic would circulate around the buildings, and our engineering department has reviewed this and feels like it would be appropriate to approve of the distancing between the buildings and the traffic circulation within.
The circles, Matt, correct me if I'm wrong, those are the turning radiuses for the fire truck.
Yeah, there are turning radius for a fire truck.
So will that street, that main access be dedicated out to 200 South? No, it'll be private?
Correct, yes.
Yeah, so it's an access easement, so it will be, they'll be allowed, customers will be allowed to use that, but it will stay as part of that property. And so for landscaping and fencing requirements, so for our light industrial zone, we require interior parking lot landscaping if you are required to have 10 or more parking stalls. So where this only requires 4, there isn't any interior parking lot landscaping. And then we just require 20 feet of landscaping along a public street. So where they don't have a public street frontage, they don't really have that requirement. So they aren't proposing any landscaping on the property. They have submitted a letter basically requesting that they not be, I guess, required to provide any landscaping. There is some landscaping along 200 South on the building that's on 200 South that I'm at 850 West 200 South. But the code, it states, unless otherwise approved by the Planning Commission, a landscaping strip 20 feet in width shall be planted with grass and maintained in a living, growing condition along all public street frontages. And then with fencing, the city code requires that a 7-foot masonry fence be installed between all properties between light industrial and residential, and that is noted on their site plan that there's a 7-foot tall masonry fence along the north of their property and along all the west. So anywhere between their property and residential does have that fence. They've provided an image of kind of a retaining wall and also fence that they would like to put in. So this is kind of an example of what they're wanting to do for both retaining walls in different sections and also for that fence in between properties.
So these would be the individual block sections to make that 7-foot fence.
This is just the retaining wall.
Oh, this would be the fence.
There, it doesn't show the
Oh, okay.
fence on top of it. This is just the
Right, but the
retaining
same
wall.
material would be used.
It would be a masonry,
Okay,
concrete type fence up
Yeah.
above.
okay.
Okay. So they do have that between
Precast
all.
product, right?
Yes.
The fence, yeah.
Yeah, they have that between the residential and their property, and then they're proposing a chain link fence between their property and existing industrial properties on the west side. One condition that we have in this motion is that the 7 feet be measured from the residential side, so that if there's any differences in grading, that that the residents will have 7 feet from their side of the property. And then for building design and architectural standards, so if you can see on the screen, there's this is the elevations for their office building. It's a variety of materials. There's synthetic stone siding, hardy siding, wood trim, and fenestration on all the sides, and that meets our architectural requirements. And then each of the storage buildings is a combination of split face block and smooth block, and so that also meets those building requirements. So it'll have the block on all 4 sides, and then the overhead doors in front of each unit. Another requirement for our light industrial zone is that all buildings have a 40-foot setback between the building and property lines with a residential property line. And so that is being met, and they've called out that 40-foot distance along all residential property line boundaries.
I could just add, I got a clarification from the owners yesterday on utilities. So there will not be individual water and sewer to the units. The only utilities provided to the units will be electrical and gas.
And so I think that's,
You will have water and sewer in the office building,
Yes.
and there'll be yard hydrants and fire hydrants around, but nothing inside the units themselves.
Okay.
so yeah, that's the information I had for these different applications. Again, there's 4 motions basically. There's kind of what we already went through with the zone change, and that's a recommendation to the city council. There's a minor subdivision. Again, that was to kind of consolidate existing lots and to I guess make that separate residential lot for the lot 1. And then there's one motion for a major subdivision, which is a recommendation to the city council for 2 subdivision plats for the condominiumize the storage units. And then there's the site plan application. So I'll go through these motions again, so bear with me as I go through all these items or these conditions.
Well, Anders,
Yeah.
the first item is the only one that is a public hearing.
Yes.
So, how do we do that with all these other motions? Because the public hearing,
Just go through the motions first when we get to that item.
okay,
And just one other thing I wanted to add was on the site plan approval, we did add a condition that site plan approval is conditioned upon the city council giving the zone change as well as
right,
major subdivision approval. So if those things don't go past the city council, then your approval is basically void. So
okay.
I think I would just start maybe with the motion from the zone change now, and then as
And
we get
then-
to each item, we can talk about that motion.
Okay,
But that's
yeah, that's the only item that is actually a public hearing, and if the zone change isn't approved, then then the other items, is there even any discussion on those? If the
I guess you
zone
would give a
change is not
negative
approved?
recommendation then on the other items.
Okay. I guess we'll start with, are you through with your presentation, Anders, or what?
Yeah.
Okay. We'll start with the commission, if you have questions for the applicant.
I don't have any. I think it's pretty straightforward.
Just related to the
It's related to the zone
zone change.
Yeah.
change. and-
Item 6 is what you're talking about.
Right.
You could ask
right, because it all is dependent on the zone change, right. Go ahead.
Yeah, I have a couple, since you are, have you discussed or thought of signage? I mean, because no one's even gonna know you're there. So have you given any idea to what you're, or have you worked out a deal on what you're gonna do signage-wise out on 200? Or you just hope to work that out in the future, because no one's gonna know you're there?
Yeah, we will address that. We haven't really addressed that yet, but we will.
Mhm.
Some kind of signage out there.
Okay, and then they're individual they're condominiumized, they're individual owners that are gonna own each one. Is there something in your CCNRs that specifically prohibits, like, I can see since it's off the beaten path, you're gonna have people trying to live in there.
Yes.
There's verbiage in there specific to that.
We do address that.
Can they turn around and rent those units out to other people? They can't.
Yeah, they could if they're the owner of the unit.
I didn't know if anything in the CCNR prevented that.
Yeah, they are definitely in our CCNRs, no residential, no living there. That's why there's no restrooms or anything in the buildings. We've been very specific about that.
So, go ahead.
Well, are you gonna keep a portion of them? I mean, what justifies having somebody there on site if you don't own any of them? I mean, what's the thought there?
As far as I know, that's why we have the office building there. We will manage the,
It'll be managed 24/7, whatever.
yeah.
So I guess one of my questions is, you were about to do this only on a smaller scale about 5 years ago. And what changed your decision at that time?
Just financially, it wasn't able to do it at that time. And
Okay,
then we had the downturn and everything, and we had the COVID, and we were ready to go before the COVID hit, before our entitlement expired.
uh-huh,
And because COVID hit and that, again, it put us back with the financial,
right.
not being able to move forward. We're now ready to move forward with it and have the funding, so we're ready to go now.
And I guess one of my questions is, you were gonna do, what, 46 units before? Why have you decided to increase that number? What we're hearing as a planning commission is that there's a lot of storage units right now. And so I'm just wondering your reasoning for, increasing that number.
We've done a market study, and they are still in demand, so, that's why, we purchased the property behind. Basically, there was nothing else to be able to do with that property, and so we wanted to, it was always our desire to be able to add on to that property in the future with more storage units. So, from the very beginning, I believe that that was what the owner's intent was, to possibly add an additional area in the back for additional storage units. When that property became available, then we purchased that property and to come back through the system to put the 75 rather than the 46.
Okay,
Also, from my standpoint, I just live up here, up the street here in Lindon, and, we're on a 20,000 square foot lot. You'd think, well, 20,000 square foot lot, you can have room for your boat and your four-wheelers and all your motorcycles and everything my boys want. You don't. So, I'd be actually looking at one of these to be able to keep my toys, so to speak, out of the public eye and in a safe location, and not having to put my truck out in the street because the boat's in the garage.
are these gonna be large enough that that a boat or, what's the size of the units?
19 feet.
You may have covered that, I can't.
There's various sizes.
We have smaller ones, and then the bigger ones, I think that they are 20 by 50, if I remember right.
What height of door you got in those bigger units, Matt?
It's right there. 14.2, RV in it.
So you could put some big, nice
Put a
RVs in
big
there.
Class A or something.
I mean, it's a little bit unique in that there's not a lot of people offering their units for sale.
Right, it is
So
different.
I don't know that they'll be competing against the rental market per se. It'll be people that wanna own their own storage.
It's a
unit.
unique business model that's
Yeah.
not necessarily throughout the city, so.
Right.
And what are your thoughts as far as the commission, as far as the residential, you know, losing some of the residential? And then talking with city, that residential is kind of landlocked at this point.
Right, that's
But
right.
there's not a lot of other options for it. Who wants to live right there?
Yeah, it doesn't look like there was no
Yeah,
way
really
to
can't-
access it and
Can't be utilized.
it
for
can't be
any
utilized, it's less
residential.
than 20,000 square feet, so it's just sort of a piece that's stuck there.
Yeah, it's kind of an anomaly right there.
And I guess from staff's perspective, just our biggest concern is just how well it's managed, because, we don't want people running businesses out of there, because they're not set up for businesses. And then just nobody living there, without having utilities there. You'd still have heat and electrical, but you wouldn't have water and sewer to individual units, but, so those were our main concerns, is just, we don't want, 20 businesses being ran out of a storage unit.
Right, and that was kind of my question, is what is the business model? I mean, are you going to require it be managed, or is it just buy, just you buy it and we've got a front building, I guess just a little bit, what's the business model of how to manage those, from a
What are you
point?
providing?
Yeah, what are you providing?
The tenants?
And what restrictions are you putting on the tenants, right, if any?
So, our business model was more like Matt was saying, there's several people who have small lots, who have toys. So more of people who want to have some place to store their toys and have somewhere to, that's basically what we saw as the model. It's not a place where people are gonna come and, like a regular storage unit where you store a bunch of your things that are left over, but.
I guess the question there is, are you providing someone on site around the clock? Is there, that type of business model? What type of those amenities, right?
So that person's kind of like the gatehouse, and so they're gonna be watching who's going in, who's going out, and whether that's 24/7 or 10 hours a day or whatever, and that person could also be kind of security, kind of double checking on what's going on,
Correct.
right? Walking the property.
And how is that security gonna be paid for, I guess? I mean, is there gonna be
We'll have an HOA.
an HOA, even though it's not a homeowners, it's a property owners association,
Property Owners Association.
that would have dues to make that happen?
Correct.
Okay.
Do you have any idea what your proposed pricing on the various sizes roughly? Not at this time?
No, I don't. I know what it was a few years ago, but I don't know what it is now.
Yeah,
So
Yeah.
I would just hate to say something because I'm not sure.
Right, yeah, that doesn't really affect this, that was just out of curiosity.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
When we approved this a few years ago, and I was on the commission, but I can't remember, was that for units to be sold also?
The very same business model, yes,
This is just an expansion?
correct.
Okay. I know we have some public here. I'm assuming you're here with interest in this project? Are there any of you that have questions or concerns?
Yeah, I've got questions. I own the property that they're gonna access this through on 200 South.
Can you give us your name, sir?
Yeah, I'm Chris Olson.
Okay.
And one of my concerns is basically the access for if they're large motorhomes and stuff, it's gonna be really tight going through there, and the other problem's gonna be just, it's gonna really affect what I can do with that building. You know, if just cars were going through there, it's one thing, or trucks, or, you know, if it was a excavation company back there periodically hauling equipment back there, which is what they've been doing, which hasn't been really any issue at all. But if they get that many units back there and that access is all coming through there, I can see where it's gonna be, an access off 200 is not adequate. The width of the access off the road is gonna have to be widened. And I'm assuming, I mean, I don't know where they're bringing utilities in from. That's the other question I've got, is how they're getting utilities to the property.
The utilities, the easement's actually an access and utility easement that they secured, and those, you will have a storm drain, water, and a sewer lateral, and then power and gas that will come up that easement.
Off of 200 South?
Yes.
200 south.
So basically, that whole access is gonna have to be ripped out then.
Yeah, it will be repaved once we're done with running the utilities.
Yeah, and that's my other concern, is if they're running big motorhomes in there, that asphalt's gotta be heavy, it's gotta be heavy for heavier, you know, trucks and stuff, heavier vehicles, so it doesn't break down, you know, over a short period of time, because, I mean, if they're full-size motorhomes and stuff going there, which it sounds like, some of the units are big enough to handle those.
Well, you'd be doing boats and that across that road too.
That's my biggest concern.
Will there be some sort of a maintenance easement for maintenance? I mean, so that Mr. Olson doesn't have to maintain it if the city's not gonna be maintaining it. Maybe that ought to be part of the HOA, maintenance agreement.
In the HO, in that agreement, yeah.
Yeah. Cause, that'd be a financial burden to him if he had to take care of it all.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
is part of the HOA.
Okay.
Well, and I'm trying to understand it, if it's part of the HOA, that's just basically your individual unit owners, you know, and elect, you know, leadership from them. But, I mean, do they usually have responsibility for road maintenance?
If it's private, yes.
Okay,
That's pretty common.
yeah, okay.
But
Just me,
Kinda
education
needs
for
to be
me.
really spelled out well though in the HOA agreement, just because people might think that, that Mr. Olson's totally responsible for the maintenance there where it's going through his west end.
It's been several years since I looked at that agreement, you know, the agreement that we had with Chris Olson.
Yeah, and
And I'm sure that there's
honestly
something
haven't
in
looked at
there.
it for a while either yet.
Yeah, I'm sure there's something in that agreement that says that we're responsible for maintenance, but like I say, it's been several years since I even looked at that.
Right, yeah.
So we will definitely review that with him to make sure that, you know,
I think that's important to just make sure that's,
yes.
in case Chris sells his property and somebody else's, people need to understand who's taking care of the maintenance there.
My one other concern is just like, and you guys have hit on it a little bit about the security and everything. I mean, where these are condominiumized, I mean, you know, there's a big difference between renting some to somebody and selling it to somebody. Because once somebody buys something like this, they figure, hey, I can do whatever I want back here. I can bring in a bunch of old cars and tear them apart and start work on them at night. And if they've got light and electricity, I mean, that is one of my concerns for, not just for me. I'm not concerned about the noise and that because we're not there at night, but the residents along the road above, if that stuff is allowed to go on. I mean, there's gotta be something in the CCNRs that basically says that they can't perform any work in those units. It's for storage only. I don't know if there is, cause I haven't reviewed them, but I can see where, you know, you get the guys in the back, units in the back corner, and they turn into a chop shop, basically. I mean, you go down to Provo University and look at some of those storage units, and that's exactly what you got.
And where they're owned.
Yeah, and where they're owned. But if they're managed and the CCRRs are right, then it could be, it could be fine, but those have gotta be enforced too, as time goes on.
Okay.
Another comment?
Another comment here?
I'm Diane Campbell, and I own the property that is just to the north of their property. And my concern is the lights, the noise, especially after hours. We already have more than we want from
BMC.
I mean, we didn't know their lights were gonna shine 14 acres over, and they're open 24/7, and they're open weekends, Sundays, all day, all night. And, after, 2 years, we're used to it. But it's, to add 75 owners, I get 75 new neighbors, and, normally a storage unit locks their gate at somewhere between 7 and 9 o'clock at night, and they need to get in there and get their motorhome put away before they lock the gate. But it sounds to me like the gate's gonna be open all the time. There's gonna be, where's the sewer going? The sewers are not gonna go to each individual
No,
unit.
there'd be no sewer.
Okay, so, but there is gonna be gas,
Just for heating purposes.
so that they can heat it and be working day and night?
Well, it's probably more of a climatization thing to not freeze up the RVs and the boats. Some people like to not winterize their boat, but they'd have to have heat if they don't.
My name's Brandon Hill. I actually live next to Dana, and I agree with everything she just said. I agree with what Chris Olson said. My biggest concern, once again, is people will take advantage of living wherever they can. I know that you're saying it'll be, climate, just to keep the climate a certain temperature, but in reality, they can get a membership at VASA and shower at VASA and live in the storage unit. And they have issues with self-storage all over the US. I used to buy storage units, and I talked to them, and that's one of their biggest issues, and they don't even have electricity or gas in these units. So to provide gas and electricity, that scares me, and then to basically have owners, 75 different owners, subletting this if they want to, that's a huge issue. Because when you start to sublet it, then the police show up and say, hey, what are you doing here type thing, and then, oh, well, I just rent it from someone else. Really, to me, it just looks like, for Lindon, it looks like it's gonna be a nightmare as far as trying to control what's going on. And speaking with some of the individuals that are in charge of the planning, really, we're the ones that are gonna be calling saying, hey, there's a problem, or hey, we're seeing something going on. It's not gonna be the person that is gonna be in the little house hoping that they see something going on.
So,
As-
go ahead.
And on that question, as far as gas is concerned, are they individually thermostat controlled, or they're just climate controlled across the board, or is each unit able to adjust the temperature?
I don't know that answer. We'd have to talk to the architect on that.
I guess one of the questions I would have too is how many hours a day are you going to have someone in the office, and will there be hours that you just say, after this hour, no one else can enter? So that you don't have people coming in and out there all night long.
I imagine there will be hours. I don't know, that's something that we need to discuss, but
I would think that wouldn't be very attractive to me as an owner. I mean, if you're coming back late from Lake Powell or some late trip and you're trying to put your stuff away at 2 o'clock in the morning, that's gonna happen. I think they're right. They're gonna see people there 24/7.
Yeah, I think, but it's a different thing to have somebody come in and park in a boat, or somebody out there working on his car.
Well, I agree.
Working on his car till 4 in the morning.
I'm just saying, there's gonna be people coming in and out of there, and again, as an owner, I would want that flexibility. I wouldn't wanna be locked out after 10 o'clock.
I agree with him, but if I owned a unit, I'd wanna be able to be there at 2 AM if I wanted to drop off my duck boat or pick up my duck boat or whatever. And I get that, and that's another reason why I say it may not be the best idea to have 75 different owners that want to be able to do this whenever they want. To me, it sounds like it's a free-for-all, so.
Well, I am concerned about the lighting too, of how you would control that lighting, because that does have an impact on the,
Well, how
on
is
the
lighting?
neighbors.
If the lighting's just on the front of each unit, the buildings, then if they're not on tall standard poles and stuff, then they're gonna be limited or contained within each row.
They're on the buildings, just light the drive accesses.
So there's no tall lighting which would broadcast over a fence or anything.
Okay.
So how would it be enforced? How would the rules be enforced? If, you know, if we did have somebody move in there and live there, how would you enforce
Oh,
that?
that's true.
Well, the bylaws are gonna, you gotta rely upon the bylaws, and you can get,
That's why you have a property owners association?
yeah.
So I dealt with this in South Salt Lake where people living out of storage units, and it was put on the city to enforce that. At least up there, you know, we're kind of dealing with property owner, you know, managers that didn't care. And so it was upon the city that we had to go in and
That is, I think,
pull out of storage units.
I think that's true, cause bylaws and stuff like that, all they can do is say, oh, you're in violation, we're gonna fine you. But no one has the
That
authority.
adds up.
What?
I've been crossways with a lot of HOAs in my career, and, you know, you get dandelions in the yard and they are fining you. And so people do react to fines, but it's, the management's gotta have the fortitude and the consistency to do that.
Well, and they gotta
Already
be,
talked about
they
that.
gotta be on top of it 24/7, which it sounds like that's what you intend on doing. To, you know, basically, you're the police department down there to make sure, or you'll have other owners down there upset with you.
Yeah.
Somebody pulls in to drop their boat off and they see somebody camping out.
Taking a
and
leak in
you-
front of their
yeah,
unit, you know,
Yeah.
cause there's no toilets.
Okay, so just to clarify, does that mean that every time someone pulls in with a boat at 2 AM, someone will be there watching? They're gonna not sleep or?
No,
They're gonna be-
I think that would be overkill. I wouldn't suggest that level of management, but there are security cameras and things like that that would be going 24/7, and they could review in the case of a neighbor complaint or something like that, and try to get to the bottom of that.
So we just hope it'll record anything that happens.
I'm assuming you guys would have very good, I mean, that would be, again, as an owner, I'd wanna buy in a place, if I'm gonna put a $400,000 RV in there, I wanna buy a place that has some good security, so I think you can adequately
That is our intention.
Somebody will what?
Living in that front.
on-site
In that front
management.
Is it an apartment type situation in the office?
Oh, so there'll be 24-hour people, somebody there 24 hours.
Okay.
That's a big difference.
So there will not be a bathroom available to those 75 people?
There will be in the front office.
In the office, the
But if you
upstairs
want
will
that
be
kind of thing,
with the shower,
Only for the resident who's living there.
so they,
Basically,
It'd be like a commercial office that
Yeah.
they would come in and they would do the sales agreement or, you know, whatever, and they would have to provide a public bathroom, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that's what you're talking about.
And that bathroom access will be behind the gate.
And that could be closed
That's
when the office hours are.
Only during office hours would be open.
Or is it possible that the bathroom could be accessed 24 hours from the outside of that building, just like a bathroom, just so that when the tenants do come in to unload their boat, if they need to go to the restroom, they're not peeing on somebody's.
Don't believe that's our intention, just to help alleviate the concern for people living in the
Okay, I see that, okay, that's a good point.
Just because that is such a concern as that.
I see, good point.
Yeah,
Good
it
point.
is.
Thank you.
Just gotta ask a question.
Okay, go ahead.
he has, Mr. Hill is my neighbor to the north. I'm to the north of them, he's to the north of me. And privacy fence, and they went years without doing it, and you had to, I mean, Mr. Hill had to put some pressure on them or turn them into the city or something to get them to make him do that. And finally they did. What's the intentions for the privacy fence between the residential and the commercial properties?
That'd have to go in before anybody could utilize any of those units in there. That'd have to be signed off, basically a certification of occupancy, just like letting somebody move into a home. So I don't know how come it got missed with, was it S&L that needed to put that wall up on your north boundary?
Yeah, and they've done, by the way, the wall that's there is amazing now, so.
Yeah. I mean, it looks like they got a nice setup
Yeah, you're
for
doing a
this,
precast.
you know, for retaining walls and where there needs to be retainage, and then 7-foot fence on top of that, masonry. So, and I haven't seen us have any problems in the last few years of not having things done before they're utilized.
Okay.
These guys are pretty on top of that.
It's more than a fence, it's a wall.
Yeah, absolutely. Concrete wall.
I'm a little concerned that you said it'd been several years since you'd actually reviewed the HOA agreement.
I just haven't sat down. We had it redone by
Uh-huh.
an attorney,
Uh-huh.
and so he just redid it. I said it's been several years since I did the access agreement. I wasn't referring to the HOA documents. I was referring to the access agreement that we did with Chris Olson.
Okay.
As far as the maintenance in that, I was just trying to open it up on my computer and I can't get it to open. But we have
Okay.
an access agreement that was signed with Chris Olson back when the original 46 lots was approved by the city, and an access easement agreement was signed with Chris Olson. That's what I said. I have not reviewed that for what we were doing for maintenance on that. I haven't looked at that for.
Okay.
I guess, Mike, does the city ever have input? How does the city ever have input in what the HOA or the CCNRs of that specific building, of that property is? Does the city ever have the ability to state those, this is what we want? We want to ensure that no one's doing work, no one's doing this after hours,
Nobody's residing.
no one's residing. Where does that come into play, or does it?
So now would be the time to look at it as part of your zone change, because this is a legislative matter. You could have, you have the right to look, have a look at those, because, you have the discretion whether or not to change the zoning, you and the city council. Now, once you give your approval, they can always amend those, CCNRs, to, whatever the majority on the on the HOA board changes those to be, those can be changed at another time. So say, the CCNRs starting out didn't allow any work to be done in the units, they could always change that later.
Without the city's input?
Yeah. Yeah, we don't get involved with those. But, now you could because of the zone change authority, but those could always be changed.
It doesn't happen very often, though. When you get 70-something individual owners, they're gonna wanna most likely stick to what went in up front and not be,
Because that's what they were sold.
you get a few subcontractors that say, yeah, I wanna work out of my thing. The majority, I don't think, would be going along with that.
So I couldn't tell you right now what's allowed and what's not allowed in those CCNRs. It's been quite a while since I've read them too, so.
Is it reasonable for us to review what that is at this point then? Because I think I would like to, I think I'd like to know what we're approving with the zone change.
Yeah.
We could probably pull them up right now.
It's the only way we could really protect the neighbors, and then it's the only ways we can get the residents around them to feel comfortable with what's going in, is what you see in the CCNRs, prohibits X, Y, and Z.
There's nothing, right, as far as storage units are permitted use in this, if we rezone, it's permitted. So there's no conditions we could put on it or anything, right? Because it's not a conditional use, it's permitted within the,
You'd need a development agreement with if you're gonna do anything more specific, you need a development agreement
With the city.
with the city.
Oh.
And that's only gonna really be in effect while
building.
they're building and so.
So there isn't any city way to say there can't be work in there can't be people living there. I mean, there's nothing that the city, so I guess
Living in there, yes.
living in there, yes.
It's not residential.
Because it's not an occupancy or residential, but it takes enforcement on the city's side.
So, just so I'm thinking through this, right, so if someone's living there, right, the cops could be called and they could be taken out because they were living in a non-residential area. Someone works there that's in violation of the CCNRs, could the cops be called, or is that just is it solely?
Yeah, because there's no business license, like, say if they're operating a business,
Yeah,
then the city could enforce that for no business
But
license.
will the police go out and enforce
This-
a business
the
license?
Police will not, that'll be myself and.
That's what I'm saying, 'cause
Right.
you gotta be careful, because law enforcement's limited to enforcing laws,
Yeah.
not
The only time the police,
ordinances
you
or.
know, up there helped me with the storage unit issues. Because they were the ones being called by other tenants, you know, that were renting units.
Will they do something illegal? That's where they would have,
Yeah, I mean,
foothold.
they had broken out walls between units and
oh,
they were living in 2 or 3 units, so.
Yeah, so the police can always be called to preserve the peace, i.e. they go to back you up, or their role isn't, to go arrest somebody for violation of a CCNR. Their position is to stand there and just make sure that Mike and his people are safe to, okay, so just to preserve the peace, that's okay.
But I don't wanna put our city planning, I mean, you're, like you've said before, you're stretched pretty thin. I don't wanna put Mike and Anders in a situation where they're trying to enforce the CCNRs, you know?
So 9.2 looks like it says, units shall be used only for storage purposes. Units are not intended for residential use or human occupancy. No unit shall be used, occupied, or altered in violation of law, zoning, or any other ordinance or resolution to jeopardize the structural integrity of any other unit or for any purpose which would render the project uninsurable.
That doesn't necessarily say anything though about, you know, taking a car apart or working.
Yeah, sitting with your air impact tools at 10:30, 11 o'clock at night.
I'm just, you know, if that's a concern.
You know, the CCNRs though could include, because it's reasonable that somebody might have a mechanic come there to fix something that was wrong on a boat, but it ought to be done during business hours.
Right.
So that, you know, there's no noise going on after, you know.
Does the city have noise ordinance?
We do.
Second, 9.4 talks about nuisances.
Yeah, but again, I'm not here at 10 o'clock at night,
No.
you know, for a noise complaint, so.
Well, if there is a noise complaint, it's gonna come from a resident, and once the noise complaint comes into law enforcement, then they do have the right to go in and say, what's going on? Why are you?
But again, they don't have access to, they gotta go knock on the door.
They gotta knock on the door, they gotta wake somebody up there, which is,
but they have somebody there.
they got somebody there for, that's why they're there. That's why they're there, so, and they could go in, and then if it's in the CCNRs, that you're saying, if the business is saying no noise after 10 PM, then you might go with the law enforcement, go, yeah, you're in violation here, you can't do this, shut it down. And once again, law enforcement would be preserving the peace.
It's difficult for me to really review these very well with this, you know, flash them up on a screen, but I don't know what the best way to do that. I guess my concern is, you know, it all sounds good, but I also want to make sure those residents are protected, you know, that are right next to this.
If there's
And
things like, more specific regarding use or, you know, hours of operation for certain types of uses, things like that, you know, I'm sure they would be glad to go back and add those with their attorney to their CCNRs if you wanted. Like, you could continue this for until your July 8th meeting and have them report back
June 8th,
for June 8th.
yeah.
Yeah. If you wanted to make specific changes or additions to their CCNRs or recommendations to their CCNRs.
But we could have a chance to review these then.
Yeah, we could, you know, you could go back, you could give them now some specific things you want them to address, and we'll add this to the staff report next time when it comes before you on June 8th.
Yeah, so we can review it
Okay.
before the meeting, and I'm sure maybe this discussion helped you understand where the concerns are from the commission and from the residents. And so now you know where some of the hiccups might be, and you can go work on that. They would update their CCNRs, we would see it in the next staff report before the meeting, so we would have a chance to review those and make sure they have the teeth in them that we're looking for.
Right. Well, does the public have any other comments?
I just have a question.
Okay, and then we'll close the public hearing and bring it back up to the commission.
Mentioned fines, would the individuals be fined, or would the company be fined, or both? So let's say that something is broken, I just want, I would hope that they both would be fined, the individual and the company, just so that it puts pressure on the company to enforce the rules, or the CCNR, or whatever that's in.
I think
The fines are for internally within them.
that would not be a fine because there's no crime, so that there would not be a fine to
So the
to
city
them.
wouldn't be fining
It would be
them
the
for it.
CCNR fining the owner of the unit for violating the CCNRs.
Like they do in a neighborhood where there's CCNRs and somebody plants something they shouldn't have planted in the front yard, they get fined until it's removed.
Gotcha.
Is that the kind of experience you've had?
Well, yeah, and there are foreclosure powers. I mean, it rarely
Yeah.
comes to that, but there are foreclosure powers that an HOA can use to collect, and I have actually seen that. They'd have to be significantly in arrears, but they have attorneys that do this, and you don't wanna get a letter from one of their attorneys, cause that just adds hundreds and, you know, even thousands of dollars on what
your
you owe the
fines?
HOA. So there is teeth that the HOA, the POA can use to control that.
So my understanding though is that homeowners associations can dissolve. It's like a 60% vote of the, so, you know, I don't know how much teeth that the
Where there's
property associations have.
common grounds of the pavement around the buildings that need to be cared for, the office building that needs to be cared for, the outside of the buildings, that's all common, like the lights and stuff, I don't see the HOA can ever be dissolved because of those obligations.
And obligation is the right word. That's why people who bought it, they
Yeah.
bought it expecting a certain level of service.
Correct.
They're not gonna come in 6 years from now and go, we don't want security anymore. We don't want the roads maintained anymore. We don't want any of that, so we're gonna dissolve the HOA.
City doesn't control it. Now, the city would control it, but there's no way that.
It's not practical with this business model.
Doesn't sound like reasonable behavior.
Right.
That does
By
happen,
owners.
though. The ranch's HOA got sued and, out in Eagle Mountain, they no longer exist, they were dissolved.
The only other
but-
thing I've
but it-
seen,
I think to his point, people want those amenities and those services and need those, in those situations, but.
the only other thing I've seen is kind of a breakdown of what the HOA fees are expected to be so that, you know, the property's maintained over time, so, you know, so the HOA has a sufficient reserve to,
Capital
replace the
improvements.
maintenance, the access. And, you know, the wall, for example, you know,
of security will go up over time just due to wages. And so there need to be a way for them to raise the HOA to
I have
maintain.
seen planning commissions request, you know, that
Cost
breakdown,
breakdown.
that cost breakdown of what an HOA fee would be to replace, a monthly HOA fee would be to replace things in 20 years or whatever that would be.
Okay.
Do you think it's really imperative that you have natural gas to every individual unit?
We wanted them so that they're climate controlled, so
Yeah.
people.
Right. So basically,
So something.
in that regard, you're gonna have, every unit's gonna be metered
Is it metered?
separately.
I mean, that was that's a good
Yeah, it's gonna
question.
be
Well,
metered separately.
Climate controlled can mean no colder than 50 degrees.
Right, right.
Across the board, you know, so not,
Right.
if all you're trying to just prevent freezing, and if
Right.
it's 50 degrees, some guy's not gonna wanna be in there working on his car at 50
Yeah.
degrees.
I think we could get back with you by the next meeting too regarding whether they'll be individually temperature controlled or whether it'll be the entire,
Yeah.
the HOA will be.
I think you would have to, because you may have somebody that's parking stuff in there, they don't wanna be paying for somebody else's heat.
No.
you
Well,
know?
let's go ahead and close the public hearing unless, okay, go
I just
ahead,
have one
Chris.
quick question. So typically on an HOA, I mean, if the owners own more than 50% of the units, which they will here in short order, because they're all gonna be sold, right? They can actually take over the HOA unless there's something saying otherwise as part of the, you know, it's part of the development agreement. Because, I mean, they can turn, once they sell the units, they can turn these guys, the owner, the original owners could walk away and turn the HOA over to the owners.
Yeah.
It's the same way on any, even with rentals.
That's usually the case. I think the developers develop it, and they usually manage the HOA until all phases are built out, and then they'll either turn it over to the owners or a management company hired by the owners.
Right. Not that that would happen. but
You're worried that
could
once that
happen.
happens, it might go to, the standards might not be enforced, is that your?
Well, yeah, because you don't have one entity that's controlling that, that's enforcing the rules.
Okay,
Typically, they would put together, you know, if owners take over an HOA, they typically have a board, you know what I mean? They have a president, they have a board,
Right.
and then the rest of the owners, you know, tell them what they want, they vote.
Yeah.
But I can see it going sideways over time if that happened, but I agree with you guys that from the standpoint that that isn't what the owners are expecting. Long-term, the people who buy these are gonna be expecting the services that they're told when they're sold.
Yeah, because the sizes and whatnot, they're not gonna be cheap.
Right.
Right, so I guess, is it structured so that this is a business, that it's beneficial for you to, you stay in charge of it because your HOA fees are your fees? I mean, is that the way it's structured, or is it structured like we're just saying here, just an HOA that you eventually
that's
gonna
elected
walk
by the
away from?
owners, yeah.
I think their big thing's to sell them, right? That's their profit. I don't think it's to manage it.
I believe that was the owner right then. I mean, I can't answer that.
Okay, so you aren't the owners
No,
then?
I'm not the owner. I work for the company.
Okay, okay.
And do you know, will they be, I mean, if they're gonna be individually heated, is there some type of way to keep the heat? I mean, y'all insulated at all, or is it just the first person that turns on the heat to heat his boat's gonna heat everybody's, right? Cause they'll travel.
No, it's gonna have to be individually.
I would think they'd be built out, there'd be a build out on these, wouldn't you think? I mean, if a guy wants to do
Individually, it's a
custom shelving or wants to do,
Do they just build it out with insulation and everything, just like a garage, basically?
I think you'd sell the shell, I mean, and then the owner can do
There
his.
would have to be
improvements.
some limits on what they could do. Well, let's
then
go
that
ahead
gets
and
into
close
building
the
permits,
public
fees,
hearing.
isn't it, and that kind of stuff.
And then we can bring it back up to the commission as far as how we're gonna handle it from here. Do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
I'll make the motion to close the public hearing.
Okay, I have a motion, do I have a second?
I second it.
Okay, motion and a second, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the voting is unanimous. what would, I'd like to ask Mike, what would be the advantage of having a development agreement?
Only if you're gonna require specific items, that's not in the code. So, but I think they're, as far as like their CCNRs, I think they're willing to go through those and look at them.
Okay, okay, so there wouldn't really be an advantage to doing that.
I don't think so at this point.
Okay,
It'd be more if you're requiring a taller, I don't know, some
Yeah.
specific requirement that.
Or a bunch of public infrastructure needing to go in and,
Yeah.
yeah.
my feelings, and I'd like to hear from the rest of you, are that we have enough questions on this that I think it would be worth continuing to give us a chance to kind of review, and then also pose any additional questions to the developers.
And I think
But
too, it'd be wise to get law enforcement input, so that the police department knows what's going, because they may have input as well. I don't know how that would work, to make them aware that, hey, this is what it is, and so that they're at least aware that,
yeah, because staff can
just
take care
make
of
sure he's
that.
aware of what this is, and he'll probably say, okay, as long as we understand what it is.
Okay. And I've written down a lot of the questions we had tonight, so will you provide us with their document, or?
Yeah, I mean, I'll probably, I don't know if they're usually 60 pages. So
Yeah,
I'll
I don't want to
probably
do that.
do the appropriate sections
Yeah,
that I think are in it.
that's what I would hope for, is you'd kind of just provide us with those things that would matter to us, or that we could control it
Go
all.
through those real quick so I can make sure that I have them.
Okay.
So, and the applicant has those to return back.
Okay, one of the things that they were discussing was how the temperature would be controlled in the units. And then one of the questions I had is, as far as enforcement after hours of noise and nuisance violations.
Yeah, noise violations is a big one that we're concerned, noise.
Right.
We've already addressed lighting.
And then as far as, let me see,
Residential.
Uses that you don't want to see, or hours of operation for certain uses.
I would say so. I mean, I believe somebody has the right, if they're building a classic car, they have the right to be in there during the daytime hour working on their car. But they're not gonna be prohibited from doing anything we wouldn't allow any other body shop to do, painting, fluids, all that stuff. So that would be, but I don't think you can say somebody can't go work on their 67 Nova or whatever in their garage.
but they can't
But they can't
do
do
it
it,
as a business.
Can't do
Yeah.
it as is business, it would have to be a personal,
Well, then it'd be reasonable to put hours.
Hours on that.
On that.
I agree,
Yeah.
then I think it's reasonable to put hours on that.
And then you have the question too, as far as, will the HOA control be turned over to the owners once a certain percentage is purchased? And are they gonna be controlling it and policing it rather than the owners?
And I think you earlier mentioned service vehicles. Service vehicles coming in would apply for that same time limit.
Yeah,
People coming in to service a boat, service an RV on site, that would be a restricted use during certain hours.
And none of those services should not be performed outside of the unit itself. So they're not pulling something apart in the parking lot or the area that it would prohibit somebody from getting into their unit if, so it probably needs to be all done inside the unit.
And maybe would there have to be something with regards to wastewater, I don't know, what's gonna happen if someone were to go in and try to wash their RV inside their unit? The water's gonna flow out of their unit out into a common storm drain.
Well, there's not water to the unit.
There's not water to the unit, but that
No.
doesn't prevent these trucks, these RV cleaners, they come in, they bring their own water, they bring their own everything with them. So, And so, I mean, there has to be
Yeah, I
something to
see what you're
prevent,
But
prevent
they'll
fluids.
likely, the engineering's gonna include probably some sort of a drainage system on the blacktop and
Right,
and
so
guttering of some
that may need
sort,
to be
yeah.
addressed.
I think an important one is the access of, you know, the 200 south access and the maintenance of that. Maintenance and upkeep of that access. And
You know,
probably
because
also
of
the
that,
emergency
It would be well that
access.
they provide Mr. Olson with a full copy of the CCNR so that he can make sure feels comfortable with how that's gonna be maintained.
Does anybody care about signage? Is that something we want them to look into, or is there not enough time for them to look into, give us a rough idea of what their plans are?
So
Does that
thinking
matter?
about that for signage, since we're not necessarily a commercial.
And not a retail operation.
Oh, okay,
It's more the listing agent puts
Okay,
on for
good.
sale,
good
so
point,
we don't really need it, that's why we have.
good
to go
point,
without that.
good point, thank you.
For security reasons, it's nice to have it private back
Yeah,
there.
Yeah.
thank you, I was thinking the other way,
Yeah, I
commercial.
think
And that's-
that'd
yeah, I-
be purely optional at their
Yeah, at their
requirements,
discretion,
if they-
okay,
yeah.
agreed.
I would like to know what the hours would be of the office as far as you know, I guess office staff, what hours they're gonna maintain. And then also on that emergency access that comes in from 800 West, how will that be maintained?
Basically, it needs to be spelled out that the emergency services will have access to the combo or a key or whatever, cause they'd be the only ones opening it up.
Right,
I mean, typically they put a Knox box on the
Yeah.
gate.
on the
and then
gate,
the Fire
yeah,
department has a key to that box.
Right.
That then has another key that opens up the gate
but as far as maintenance of that that emergency access,
Yeah, to keep that,
Road.
weed-free and not overgrown and.
Yeah, branches over top that would get in the way and.
okay, that's some of the things that I had. Are there others that,
That covers it.
as far as,
Maybe you wanna to look at any specific type uses, you know, that may not be allowed in there, in the units.
They may have ideas of specific units they don't want, types of uses,
I mean, you don't wanna receive customers there, like if you're selling a product and inventorying a product, you don't wanna be receiving
Yeah.
customers there all day, every day.
Yeah.
That's more of a retail
Yeah.
use, and you. Right, but you know, some guy's selling stuff on Craigslist and KSL on his website.
But I went, where was it? I went and picked up something for a lady in my neighborhood, a desk. And this guy had 7 storage units opened.
Yeah.
And that's what he did, he sold it was dressers, sorry. He had 7 storage units full of dressers and they were all just opened and he ran his storage, he ran a dresser business out of those 7 storage units.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
totally agree. I mean, that's happening all the time. I'm just,
Yeah.
if that owner was running ads saying, hey, I'm there from 9 to 5 every day, come on by and take a look at my inventory, I think that's problematic.
how about we say something to the effect of, you know, no live animal storage, period, you know, something like we have for reptile farms. Here, what's to prevent somebody from wanting to go, hey, I got this place, I'm gonna go in here and I'm gonna put this and this and this, or they put grow lamps in there, they got electricity, they put grow lamps in there, and maybe they wanna, who knows what they wanna do.
and if they're heated,
I mean, but see,
Yeah.
so those aren't, this is designed specifically as a storage for non-live material, you know, or something to that effect, I mean, so that we don't get somebody down the road.
Exotic animals.
What?
Yeah.
Exotic animals.
You know, a meat farm in the middle of
No.
Lindon, you know, in the middle of a storage unit.
No herbs or plants, no living animals,
Yeah,
marijuana farm.
non-living,
unliving.
it's non-live storage. If it's a live plant or animal, it's not allowed.
Nothing organic.
Okay,
Yeah, something.
I
you've got quite a list,
So
yeah.
I think maybe we could meet this week and kind of go through that.
That would be helpful, yeah, I don't want to review a 60-page document, you know. But I do think a lot of those concerns of the neighbors and our concerns need to be addressed. So I'm assuming with all these concerns as far as the zone change, that we are continuing that at this point, unless anyone else has comments. Okay. And if we are continuing the zone change, then we won't need to go ahead with the other items. So, do I have a motion?
I would probably go through and just continue each.
Okay,
item.
so we can continue the zone change and then continue each other item,
Yeah, I do separate motions and just continue
okay?
minor, major, and site plan approvals.
Okay, so we have got the zone change, and then we have also got I just made some notes, the minor subdivision, and then we've got the site plan, and we've got the major subdivision motion. And so motions will need to be made to continue all of those. Okay, is there someone that is ready to is willing to just go ahead? I mean, the same person can make all those motions, can't they?
So,
Or just do one at a time, it's easier.
Yeah, I'd be happy to.
One at a time, but do you want to trade around who
Just let
does
each
it?
person do a motion.
Yeah,
That's pretty cumbersome to just.
I'll do the first one.
Okay,
I move to recommend continuing of ordinance 2021-7-0 to amend the Lindon City zoning map from residential R120 to light industrial at approximately 860 west, 200 south, parcel number 14-065-0219.
I'll second that motion.
okay, I have a motion to continue. Do I have a second? Oh, you second it? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the voting is unanimous.
On the
Okay.
next one, I'll move.
Okay.
I move to continue of the applicant's request for preliminary minor approval of the Lindon Self-Storage Plat A with the listed conditions 1 through 5 in the staff report.
Okay, I have a motion to continue the minor subdivision.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the voting is unanimous on that.
Okay, I'll go ahead.
Okay,
I move to continue the applicant's request for preliminary approval of the Linden Self-Storage Condominium Subdivision plats.
okay, now we need the
Missed
site
one.
plan
You
first,
missed one. It's site plan motion.
before that.
Oh, sorry. I got ahead of it. I move to continue the applicant's request for site plan approval.
Okay. I have a motion to continue. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the voting is unanimous. Okay, and then we have one more motion to continue.
I'll do that.
Okay,
This is the major subdivision motion for Linden Self-Storage
Right.
Subdivision Plats B and C. I move to recommend continuance of the applicant's request for preliminary approval of the Linden Self-Storage Condominium Subdivisions Plats B and C with the following conditions 1 through 7. Continuing.
I second that motion.
okay, I have a motion and a second to continue. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the voting is unanimous on that also. And so what I'm assuming is that you will visit with our city staff and work through those things with them, and then this will come back to us on June 8th?
Yeah,
If they're ready.
Yeah, if you're ready with it.
I would just like to say that I like the idea. I think
So do
think I could see some guys making some awesome man caves down there, and they've got all their motorcycles all out there, and custom shelving and custom lighting, and kind of a hangout spot or storage for RVs. And I think, I really like the idea. I don't love the access going through his property, but that's just my opinion. I mean, if we're okay with it as city going on to 200 South, that's okay. I'm a little nervous about overreaching so much into your property owners associations, CCNRs. I think the suggestions we provided are valid, especially to, calm their concerns, which are legitimate concerns. So hopefully the list that we've gotten at least has given you some things to think about that maybe you haven't thought through. But I'm a little concerned as a city to really get into the nitty-gritty on how you guys manage that. So that's kind of where I stand. I won't be here on June 8th, but I like the idea, and I would tend to, with a few things that need to be worked out, tend to vote for an approval on it.
I think there isn't any of us that are totally negative to the idea. I don't think that's the situation. I think we just want to make sure that we're addressing the concerns of the neighbors and protecting them as well as the city and how it's policed and how it's put together. So. Okay. Mm-hmm.
Did you get that gentleman's name? The other one.
Okay, the one in the green. Not here. Brandon Hill. Okay, thank you. And you have hers? Okay. And thank you so much for being here with us. And a lot of the concerns you brought up are things that brought concerns to our mind too, and things that needed to be addressed. So thank you very much for your input tonight. So, and I guess we'll just have you work with city staff, and then they'll bring some information back to us.
Great, thank you.
Okay, and thank you so much for being here with us.
No problem.
Okay. And it looks like we're on to just planning commissioners' reports. I think it would be interesting to the commission, to those that, and also if Councilman Vanchery has any input on the discussion with the city council this last Monday night.
Regarding?
Do you want to go, or do you want me to?
On the Norton
I
property.
won't take very long. We denied the motion to,
Not have it go through.
not have it go through, which means it was voted to go through. And it was very close. It was a 2-2 vote, and then the mayor actually broke the tie.
Mm-hmm.
And they come up with a design that would slow the traffic down. It, wouldn't allow for just a straight shot.
I'll bring that up. I can bring that.
I think the overwhelming feeling, I think they've got it down to 75, or is it 79, Mike?
75.
Yeah, 75 units. The road that they were proposing was on the west side of the 300-foot commercial setback.
Mm-hmm.
And there were several that had heartburn with that because they were suggesting that by moving that road inside the 300-foot setback, that's how they arrived at more open space and more landscaped area and so forth.
Rather than reducing the density.
Rather than reducing the density, and the feeling was that road needed to go to the inside, to the
east side of the
east
commercial.
side. And I'm not sure she's gonna take the advice that she was given, but I think the plan hopefully would be that she would compromise a little bit and reduce it by some units. And I think those were the major concerns. I felt like that the transition that was being made between the end of 570 into the or the townhouses and stuff, I think that was pretty well accepted as far as I could tell.
Mhm.
Very productive discussion, I thought, with the council as a whole. So we did continue. She should be coming back next week. I think she's got plenty of input to know what needs to be done. And if she's pretty close, then I think we would probably have the opportunity to go ahead and vote on that, make a final vote.
I think it seemed like the message was given to her pretty clearly, though, that 300, that roadway needed to be within the,
Yeah, and
outside of the 300
And she,
foot
yeah, she
commercial.
understands that from visiting with her. She knows that, I think, and
Do you,
she's,
do you think she knows that 300, that road shouldn't be in the 300?
well, she was sure.
The message
she
was
sure
given
told.
to her
The message
pretty
was real
loud and clear.
Okay, I'm not sure she understands that,
Oh,
but
wow. I didn't get the feeling, just watching it live, that she got that message.
yeah, I think she'll come back with a plan with that.
Well, maybe.
But again, the road is a little, the more I think about it too, it's a little deceiving how big the road looks, because it's only 33 feet. So you are only encroaching into that 300 feet by 33 feet.
Yeah.
So, but again, that does, if the road was in just the outside the 300 feet, that does have an effect on density though,
It does.
and open space. So,
And several of the council people really felt strongly on that density issue.
yeah.
And it seemed like the mayor did also.
So I got an email from them today asking what day they needed to get me an updated plan, so I told them by Monday, so.
Well, let's just say if she doesn't understand it, she sure wasn't listening.
Yeah.
And then just quickly, we did approve the ordinance change for Lowbrook sales.
Yeah.
Zone
to the-
change, yep.
Yeah, to this, yeah. And they're excited. Just was exciting to me is he shared after the item was approved that last month they sold 135 trucks.
Mhm.
Average purchase price of $35,000. That's $4.75 million in 1 month.
Wow.
So that's gonna be interesting to see how that helps our coffers.
Be great.
Yeah. So, thank you, that's all I've got.
Okay, well, thank
Can I
you,
just
Mike,
say-
for being here with us.
Oh, glad to, I love it.
So with the, right now, that Elwood Place to the west is inside the 300.
Inside the 300, correct.
Yeah, this
But
line
we-
right here
But
shows.
but what I like about this, though, is that it does allow for more green space by putting the road in there. And that gives these people a little bit bigger yards or more green space or whatever. So what's the problem?
That was her idea, that was,
Yeah,
that was the
You
argument.
want her to put it inside and then you want her to.
She'd have to reduce density.
Then she'd have to reduce the density, and that's what the city most of the city council.
What do they want? Did they give her a number? Like, hey, we're happy if you get 68? Or did,
No,
no.
she kept saying, well, I can't make it pencil out at 6 per acre, and
The mayor, I
and
think,
the mayor-
probably 3 or 4
the-
times said,
the
we're
mayor
not
kept
asking
it-
you to go to 6.
yeah, we're not asking you to go to 6, there's quite a range between 6 and 10,
Yeah.
you know,
Okay.
and I think
She said that a couple of times.
she said that a couple of times, and the mayor kept saying, again, there's quite a range between 6 and 10, so, you know.
What does she do? What is it? Pencil out to here is this 9.5?
9.7, I believe, Mike, is that right?
That's
They're
what
at-
she said.
I think they're at 9.77 right
Yeah,
now.
9.77, so, and she did take a few units off, but again, it was
She took
more of a.
One.
Yeah, it was more of a, okay, I took some off kind of deal, so.
Well, she
I do
created the
appreciate-
green space and the road, but by putting the road up through on the 300, in the 300-foot setback, that's the way she was able to do that.
Yeah.
And they were saying, no, the road has to be within the development. And if and you still have to have the green space, and you still have to, so if that means you've got to reduce a few units to be able to have all that in compliance, then that's what you'll need to do.
I was gonna say, I did appreciate that they actually finally went with more parking than the ordinance said.
Yeah,
Which
and
was
that's
helpful,
a-
right? I
that's
mean,
a really good
That's
thing.
helpful,
Good point. That helps a lot.
I think that's just a lot slower than I thought, to get maybe to the point where it's a. My biggest concern about the road there is the way the ordinance is then having to put a 7-foot fence on the other side of the road, which then it makes the road residential because you put the fence over here, but you can't put, I still can't wrap my head around how that works well. But, right, because there is a 7-foot masonry fence on the back side of that commercial building. Cause that's what the code requires, right, is a separation between residential and commercial with a 7-foot masonry fence. And then it picks up again somewhere else. That just seems squirrely to me, trying to do that.
And I know with Lindon Nursery, they're gonna they wanna propose a different fence. They wanna propose, a wrought iron fence. 'Cause they think it looks classier, but that's something
But it won't be side obscuring?
no. They don't want it to be side obscuring with the Lindon Nursery.
Well, that's part of the ordinance, so.
Yeah.
They got their own set of challenges with Astro.
Yeah.
Yeah, with the
Anything
road.
else, Mike?
Yeah, I have one item,
And Mike, when
Yeah.
that comes in, could you send it to us again, just to look at?
Yeah.
When they send their plan,
When are they on the agenda again for city council?
for the 8th,
Oh,
or 7th, sorry.
7th,
Yeah,
Yep.
so.
Day before our meeting.
and we're doing 8th and 25th?
22nd.
22nd.
8 and 22,
Yeah.
okay.
Well,
Just,
yeah,
I know you've got the things, and these are just simple things, so the swimming passes, they'll be available when?
I can't remember what,
We got an email.
Kathy sent that email out.
Kathy sent an email.
You sent an email out about the swimming passes.
Did you say a week before or something?
Supposed to be before Memorial Day, so.
So that would be
I
now.
was thinking this week, you just go into the rec center and ask for them.
Okay,
Heath will let us know.
Heath has to let us know when they're ready. And
okay,
as of now, not yet, because I have to send it out to everybody.
okay.
So I'm
You
assuming
tell them, you know who I
tomorrow,
am?
Wednesday.
I'm Sharon's friend.
Oh, sure.
And who do we contact when we want to rent a pavilion or the,
Parks and Rec.
is it Parks and Rec? Okay.
Yeah, just the front desk over there.
Okay.
Tracy or Judy can do
Okay.
You can go online and see which ones are available.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
right.
and
I
you
have
can-
my
you can
account.
look
That's
online.
right.
In fact, I think you can even do it online if you don't want to
Talk to anybody.
contact them. You have to set up a login and stuff.
Yeah, but then how would it know not to charge us? If you did it online, I think
Yeah, you probably want to
if I did it in person, then they would
Probably
know
want to go in.
to get the over account.
Yeah,
And then you said they were gonna have an employee summer party at the
I
pool?
think they are.
Do you know the
this year.
date yet
We're
on
not-
that?
No.
We're not gonna do it at the pool.
Oh,
We're,
you guys in
Oh.
charge?
yeah, we're in charge.
What? Come on, Mike, you gotta
Chicanos?
reconsider.
We are going to do a luncheon, so it'll probably be at one of the park out here. So
Is it just for staff or staff and family or?
it'll just be for staff, city council, planning commission.
Okay.
And their families are just,
Probably not families.
Well, you guys have done families before at the pool.
Yeah, they wanted to just do it more for employees to get to know each other
Okay.
because
Yeah,
there's a
makes
lot of new employees and so.
Gosh,
see,
my,
I'm reading between the lines. You don't know how to swim, do you, Mike?
I got those little arm
my
things.
my grandkids and son-in-laws are so excited about having passes to the flow rider though.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's some employees that don't attend because they don't want to go to the swimming pool and so, so they,
Yeah.
so they want to give them a chance to do something different and I imagine next year we'll probably go back to the pool, but they wanted to do something different.
Okay, we'll let you
It'll
this
be
time.
fine. It'll be a great party.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Soon as
then
you know
I
the
asked,
date, let us
I
know.
asked Mike about any updates on our temple stuff and there aren't
don't.
any yet. So,
I'm out there surveying or anything, but.
okay, unless someone else has things they want to bring up.
I just wanted to go over this really quick.
Wait,
Okay.
June 8th is the big celebration for the Iron Cowboy
Oh,
that the city's doing.
yeah, I don't know anything about it.
Well, that's our next meeting, right?
Yeah.
It's June 8th? We talked
Yeah.
about it in our last meeting, didn't we?
What time's it at? Maybe but
We'll have a pretty big agenda on that 8th.
Dang it. That's a big deal.
What time's it at?
Well, it kind of depends when he finishes. But I did see something that Timpanogos High School was having something that night, right?
I don't know.
I don't know if he's gonna finish there, I don't know if they're,
Is he committed to coming to whatever Lindon wants to do?
well, he's always ended at Friar Park every night.
I heard
And that's,
I heard it was at Friar Park.
yeah.
It is. His daughter's putting an event together.
Well, it's very well deserved.
Sponsors or?
This is his work.
He does have,
He has sponsors.
Yeah, he must have sponsors.
I mean, they had it in Utah Valley Magazine, and every night he's getting more and more people come out and join him in his walk around at the end of the day.
It's like Forrest Gump.
Yeah, sure, that's right.
Well, I mean, let's find out what time it is. It potentially could be, I could ask the chief of police, because he's been coordinating with his daughter on the
Yeah.
event. And so, I mean, say it's at 6 o'clock, maybe we move our meeting to 7 or something. I'll work on
I
that.
guess I'm the one that cares the most, but I don't know. I see him out there, I'm riding my bike every evening, I see him out there and his posse, and
That's cool.
it's a big deal.
Yeah, my husband
Very cool.
is on Instagram about 4 or
I
5
know,
times
it's
a day.
very exciting, he finished 86 today. 86. He's so close.
Amazing.
Tired, I'm there.
It's amazing.
And it's too bad he won't make the Guinness Book of World Records.
Why?
So, because he didn't have the same person filming every day is what I think our chief
Well,
of police
that's
said.
baloney.
So,
The same person,
yeah. So,
Oh, my goodness.
that sounds like it's something we can fix.
so.
Okay.
So really quick, so this state law change passed this legislative session. Planning commissioners are required to have 4 hours of training every year. You have to have 1 hour of general powers and duties. You also get 1 hour if you attend 12 meetings, which you guys always do. But I have to, myself and Anders or Kathy, we have to now keep track of all of your training. And then you also have to have 3 hours of training unless you qualify for the 12, then that knocks one of the hours off. But under these items here, appeals and variances, conditional use permits, exactions, impact fees, vested rights, so on. So you can go on the League of Cities and Towns website. I'll send you a link to it. You can watch some of their videos, but then you would need to just report that to us.
Okay.
If you go to a conference, that would also qualify. If you do if you're involved in real estate, Jared, you can get your hours there as well. I think.
Continuing education counts as.
Yeah, it says the Division of Real Estate, so a list of training courses selected by the league or the Division of Real Estate. So those would count as well. But we just have to, if you take a training, I'll do some periodically, I'll have Brian come as well. So, but if you do some trainings with real estate or the league, you watch their videos, please report that to us so we can keep track. So.
When are the conferences this year? Do you know?
They canceled the one in May, so the next one will probably be in October.
Yeah, that's the statewide. We just had the spring one in St. George.
Yeah, is ours in Hawaii or something great like that?
They're usually,
You can
I
go to
think
Hawaii and log in.
The APA ones,
Yeah,
I think that one,
The what?
those are usually in Salt Lake.
Yeah.
The spring ones are, in Moab or Kanab or
Yeah.
places
yeah.
for
Park
APA.
City. Yeah.
The Utah League of Cities and Towns is always in St. George in
In
April.
the spring meeting.
Yeah,
But I've been to them in Park City and places like that.
yeah,
We did one with Larry H. Miller
Mm-hmm.
Theater one time.
yes, yep. So that's all I had, so we'll just have to keep track of your hours.
Okay.
A couple of other things. We passed the almost preliminary, we passed the amended preliminary budget. I think our next meeting on the 8th, we'll vote to approve the final budget. Employees got a 1.6 or 1.4 cost of living, and then merit. I think it ends up being 4%. Some starting in July, some starting in January. Also, they did a wage and salary survey, and there was a handful of people that were, in some cases, 25% 5% below
Yeah, underpaid.
study average, and those people, some were adjusted. And then the slide, there'll be a new, nice, big slide at the rec center and a pool and so.
And the shade structures too, huh?
I think they voted to put in, we voted to start doing something with the rodeo grounds.
And what I thought was a big thing was the amount appropriated to roads.
Yes.
If you want to say something about that.
Well, some of that's carryover too from this budget year, but yeah, we had a healthy, I think our fund balance now, we can go up to 35%. And I believe that what we've got, the way the budget works, it's about 29%, something like that. Our fund balance, so.
But it was like 2 million something or other for
Yeah.
roads this
Yeah,
year.
for roads, it's gonna be great.
So,
And commissioners would not object to an increase in stipend.
Is that right?
When's the last time that's been considered?
so we
Is
just
chip
About a
cooking
month
not
ago.
enough?
yeah.
About a month ago,
What?
about a month ago.
You did consider it, or you threw it out?
Well,
Councilman Venturi had us research
yeah,
what
I
other
had
cities were
research.
doing,
I
and
felt like that perhaps there was some justification
in Utah County, you're one of the only
compensated.
compensated commissions.
As it turns out, it's hard to say, but as it turns out, you guys are the top of the heap when it comes to compensation.
Just be quiet.
Yeah, it's okay.
I don't know what venue you get.
It doesn't mean that we're not worthy of it. I'm just
Yeah.
bringing it up, but
Yep.
that's their problem. That's not our problem.
No, I
That they're
understand.
not compensating their people.
So.
This is why you have quality. This is why you have quality people.
A majority of the commissions got invited to the Christmas dinner.
That is correct.
That was,
That was
That was the
got the
extent of it.
Christmas dinner, and I think one got a $25 gift card.
one
to-
got it, yeah.
to the
Let's
ribbon.
just keep it like it is then.
Real quick, one other item I forgot to mention. So there's a developer that has the north side of 700 North under contract. They are going to present, in a kind of a work meeting to the council on June 7th, a proposal. So if you're interested in attending that on June 7th,
Is that the entire north side of the 700?
it is, yeah.
How, is that favorable or not?
I think it looks good. I mean, it does have some housing in it. Of the 37 acres, 29 of it is commercial. So,
That's great.
So-
The one we've been talking about for a while, is that included, or do you know that yet?
it is, but it's not the top choice. It's second. So another community is the top choice. So.
Okay.
So,
Well, that sounds good then.
yeah.
huh?
Things are, boy, we're just so blessed, no question about
Yeah.
it. We had the policeman's awards
read
banquet
about
last
that.
night, and
Yeah.
was Officer Campbell? Oh, you weren't there. I think Officer Campbell was voted Officer of the Year, and Officer Barlow was voted the Outstanding Service Award, and two of the other ones got the Captain's Special Recognition.
Within the
Within the department,
the
yeah.
unit, yeah.
For Lindon City only?
Yeah, from London City.
Yeah.
Is that something we could have been invited to?
I don't know who sent out the invitations.
But-
I can certainly ask. Just quickly, this was phenomenal. I've been with Chief Barlow lunch, we've talked, and we talk frequently, and what was fascinating is he told me he had a wife and some kids and stuff, so last night, we stood up and introduced ourselves, and right after the introductions, some very pretty lady runs across the hall, grabs me, and she goes, "Mike Fancherry, right?" I said, "Yeah." She said, "You don't remember me, do you?" Well, she was my daughter's age. She was just a little tyke, probably 5 years old, when we got to know their family. Her mother was a single mother, and we kind of helped them, along the way. And now she's married to Chief Barlow.
That's
It was
funny.
surreal.
That's fun.
It was like, whoa.
Oh, that's funny. Well, let's have a motion to adjourn then.
So moved.
Okay, should I have a second?
Second.
A motion and a second, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Well, I vote for a raise for Kathy and Mike and Anders. Is it too late for that?
I second it.
Yeah, see?